Welcome to Truth Talk Live.
All right, let's talk.
The truth is, I can't hide it. I can't hold it no more.
A daily program powered by the Truth Network,
This is kind of a great thing, and I'll tell you why.
where pop culture, current events, and theology all come together.
Speak
Your mind.
And now, here's today's Truth Talk Live host.
Today on Truth Talk Live, we're crossing continents and hearing the heartbeat of God from Africa to America. Our guests from South Africa and Nigeria have seen the power of God move in ways that would stir your faith. Miracles, breakthroughs, and moments where only God could have done it. This isn't just their story. It could be yours too. So how about you? If you could ask a believer from Africa, which we happen to have two guests today from there, and one from Winston, John Perry, who's here with him. But anyway, if you could ask a believer from Africa one question about their faith, their church life, or miracles that they've seen, what would that question be? Load it up. It's a good opportunity for you to call us today, 866-348-7884, 866-348-7884. Our guests are ready to share their stories and answer your questions live. Or maybe when was a moment in your life you knew without a doubt that God was real and working in your situation? Call in and share your testimony. We would love to hear it. Your story could be the spark that helps somebody else come to faith. It's so fun today. We have, first of all, Rob Smith from South Africa. Rob, welcome to Truth Talk Live.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And you have a little different accent than our other guest. So, you're from South Africa, I understand.
That is correct.
And tell us.
Right now, I'm in Johannesburg. I live in Seattle and in Johannesburg, and busy working on a project in Mombasa, Kenya. And so I've been able to enjoy the best of Africa and the best of the USA in my lifetime, and I'm grateful for that.
And so now you, from what I understand, you have a ministry that reaches into several places in Africa, right?
Correct.
And can you?
Yeah, we've done orphan care throughout sub-Saharan Africa, and then business as mission for the last 12 or 13 years in Uganda and Tanzania, and now expanding that to Kenya.
Right, and we have John Perry here with us as well, who's very familiar with your ministry. John?
Yeah, Rob Smith is an amazing man, and I've had a chance to travel with him to Africa, and he's an incredible guy. We rode a boat, and on that boat, my brother-in-law got stuck on that boat for 5 hours, floating there, and then we got rescued off the boat by people who came in this little boat, and then we got back to shore. But it was going very close to the rocks, so all the locals were diving into the ocean to try to save the Americans from this boat that was one of the best boats on Lake Victoria.
So pretty exciting. And our other guest has something to do with a boat, too. Interestingly, we have Fidelis Iyabude with us, and he is from Nigeria. But Fidelis, when you were a young man, from what I understand, Sue said we may have to make sure that we tell the story of how you would get to school every morning. Fidelis?
Interestingly, my name is Fidelis Iyabude, as Rob has told you. I was born in 1950 to a family of traders. And we had just one school in the community. This is a community in which there are several villages, and we had a central school. And so every child in the various villages would canoe to the central school by boats. And before you can do that, you have to learn how to swim by the time you are 4, 5. And if you don't know how to swim, you don't go to school. And so every child has to learn how to swim. The parents make sure that every child can swim by the time they were 5. And so myself and my 4 other siblings, Eva, who was the oldest girl, and Meshach, Abraham, myself, And we had to paddle in our canoes to school. And the children still paddle to school, in their canoes. And if I have the permission of Rob to say this, we need a school boat, well fitted with computers and everything that students can use on their way to school and back. So if you have the possibility of donating a school boat, we will really appreciate it. And
how wide is this river?
Well, the river is not particularly, it has tributaries all over, but it's not.
In other words, a school boat. I'm trying to get an idea of.
A school boat.
Because if you're in a canoe,
yes,
and so you're wanting a boat that I'm just trying to get a idea.
Yes, it's a fairly large, water stream.
Wider than the room we're in.
Oh yeah, by far, about 4 times this room.
Okay.
Yeah. So
for those listening, it'd be about 80 feet.
Yeah. So ships pass through the river.
Oh yeah.
And so we need a school boat as large as it can be, and that would be well fitted. Students will be comfortable. They can have desk on which they can study, because for some students it takes about 5 to 10 miles for them to paddle nautical miles to paddle to the central school. And so we really need the school boat. And why do we even need the boats? These are boats that evangelists, people can go into. People who want to spread the gospel can go into those schools boats and share the word of God. And Africa, they have an ear for the gospel. There are no restrictions like we have in schools. I teach from time to time as a substitute in schools in Fairfax County in Northern Virginia. You can't talk about God in those schools. But here we have this freedom, to speak about God, about Jesus Christ. And in the curriculum of all the schools, there's, religious knowledge, they call it, religious instructions. And so this is a great opportunity to spread the gospel too.
And so how about you, Rob, when you were going up in South Africa, I don't suppose canoes were part of the program.
We've got a rough signal here, guys. Hopefully it'll clear up in a minute.
Oh, you're not hearing it too well. Okay.
Well, I'm hearing it well now. I didn't hear the last little bit of what our brother was saying, but I did hear the need for a school boat and just describing how you go to school.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What was it like growing up in South Africa when you were growing up? Couldn't hear me. Okay. So moving along.
We're going to get him back
How did you come to faith, Fidelis? Or was that something, were your parents Christians, or was that something that happened? How did it happen?
Well, in elementary school, we read the Bible. And it was compulsory in the Anglican, or here it's called the Episcopal Church. The Anglican school requires that we read the Bible as part of the school curriculum. So, and they recommended the Revised Standard Version of the Bible, which from the 1st grade to the 6th grade, you have to read every day. It's part of the school curriculum, so it's a subject that you have to learn. And then in high school, I attended a Methodist high school, which was a very good school. And every Tuesday, we had the choir practice. But every day of the week, before school starts, there is we call it the assembly hall. Every student had to gather.
Well, and it sounds like we got to go to a break, Fidelis. I hate to jump in on you there. But in the meantime, if you have a question for Fidelis or Rob, we would love to hear it. This is your opportunity to talk to a believer from Africa. Still goes over there quite often. 866-348-7884. 866-34-TRUTH. We'll be right back.
Truth Talk Live.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
Welcome back to True Talk Live. Today we are crossing the continent to Africa. We're so blessed to have with us two believers from Africa, one from South Africa, one from Nigeria. We have Rob Smith and Fidelis Iebude. And as we left our hero Fidelis, he was going to share his testimony with us. He had attended in the elementary school, going through all the Bible and the RSV version, then went to a Methodist high school. And so pick it up, Fidelis.
Yeah, thank you. So I attended a Methodist high school, and every day of the week we will have the school assembly. Every student will gather in an assembly hall, and we'll sing from the Methodist hymn book, Blessed Assurance, Jesus is mine, I need thee, every hour I need thee. And we did that for, 5 years. And yet, we did not know Christ. I mean, you go through elementary school, read the Bible, and then in high school it was the same thing. We were simply churchgoers, and we had to go to the school chapel every Sunday, at the Methodist church. But we were simply churchgoers because we did not have a personal relationship with God through Jesus Christ, because there is no other way. Jesus is the way. So there's a clear difference between a churchgoer and a saved, transformed life. And this was my experience. And it was not until I went to college in 1973 that I met some college students. They were just like Campus Crusade for Christ here. They were very committed students who were spreading the gospel on campus. And so one of them met me and shared the gospel with me. And he said, I need Christ. I need to be a Christian. I said, I've been a Christian since I was 6 when I started going to the Episcopal elementary school. But he said, there's a difference. And he began to share the gospel with me. He began to tell me why I need to confess my sins and ask God to forgive me. Why I need to forgive and forget everyone who has anything against me. And he shared the gospel with me and led me to Christ, So I reluctantly prayed with him because I thought I was a Christian. How could you be going to church all these years and not be a Christian? I said I was a Christian. But then I reluctantly prayed with him. But in my heart of hearts, I knew that there was a difference between his life and my own life. He had this peace in him. It was, I can only liken the experience with what the Moravians had with the Methodists, You remember, the ship in which the Moravians were traveling with John Wesley.
Right.
And John Wesley saw the serenity, the peace in the Moravians. And I don't know if he asked, what was the secret behind their being so peaceful and so, so caring and so loving. And they shared the gospel with him. And I am told that it was through the Moravians in the ship with John Wesley that he came to know the Lord. That's exactly, the experience that I had with this young man in college. And it was on March 29, 1973, that I gave my life to Christ. I accepted Jesus Christ as my personal Savior and Lord. And believe me, there's a clear difference. From the life I lived,
And so what was that difference like for you?
The difference was that, the things I used to love to do that were evil, that were not right, it's like the Holy Spirit of God came into me and gave me the grace, the power to live above sin. And if by mistake, in those days, we used to do the wrong things deliberately. But when I came to accept Jesus Christ as my personal Savior and Lord, under no circumstance would I deliberately sin. Because God gave me the grace to live above sin. That's the clear difference.
That's wonderful. John, have you been able to, Rob, have you been able to hear us? Is the connection better?
I have been able to hear. Can you hear me?
I can.
Loud and clear.
How about you in South Africa? How did you come to faith?
Well, I grew up in a Christian home, and the denomination that my dad was a pastor and presented a theology that said that Jesus paid for my sins, but then you could lose your salvation anytime you sinned. And so I grew up a very confused man, thinking I was saved and then thinking I wasn't saved. And I feel like my conversion occurred one day when I was 16 years old, reading a book by Ian Murray called The Forgotten Spurgeon, and basically laid out what Jesus did for us on the cross, and that it was once and for all, and that I didn't have to strive. Jesus had done it all, and it just lifted this huge weight off my shoulders of me having to perform in order to keep the favor of God. And just the realization that Jesus had performed a perfect life for me that was mine by faith, and that if I'd confess my sins and accept him into my heart, his righteousness became my righteousness, and of course his death paid for my penalty for my sins. And so that really energized my spiritual life, and I've loved Christ and walked with him ever since. And that was in 1974, so it's been a long time.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
60 years. Yeah, there's a good while. So now, God has given you a passion and a vision for your ministry. Can you kind of share what that would be, Rob?
Well, yeah, I immigrated to the United States at 19, and if anyone knows much about South Africa, the 70s was the apartheid era. The whole world was against South Africa because they had very divisive racial policies. And so I left South Africa and really left Africa when I was 19 and spent 20 years in the United States. And I still love the United States. I still have a home in Seattle. And I didn't think much about Africa until the AIDS crisis came along. And what I was hearing from missionaries was just how many orphans were created during the AIDS crisis in the late 90s and the early 2000s. And so my wife and I began to realize that even though we were, we'd lived in America and we'd sort of left Africa, that the one thing that we could offer is the care of orphans. And so we got into orphan care, and in a big way. And we've got involved in raising orphans here in South Africa, in Zambia, and in Uganda, and during the AIDS crisis. And it was a very rewarding ministry. Stu Epperson, who's normally the host of Truth Talk Live, was involved in that, and was just a wonderful ministry. And it was a ministry that had a limited life on it because the AIDS crisis is no longer taking lives. There's still a lot of AIDS around, but there's drugs that keep the parents alive, and so the orphan crisis has been abated. And so our ministry did what it needed to do, and then we actually closed that ministry during COVID because the last of our orphans were becoming adults and we were putting them through school. But during that era, what I realized was that in every area we were caring for orphans, the bigger need was economic life, so that our orphans could have jobs once they became adults. And so as a serial entrepreneur, I really felt called to be a man that was creating jobs in the areas that we were raising orphans. So that's what I've been doing ever since.
Wow. Well, we got to go a break. Your opportunity to call in and ask Fidelis or Rob a question, 866-348-7884.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
Welcome back to True Talk Live. Today we are like going international. How fun. We're crossing the continent over to Africa, both South Africa and Uganda and Nigeria. And oh my goodness, we have Rob Smith. We just heard about his amazing ministry, and Fidelis Iabute. I'll keep trying it until I get it. It's very important to him that I do. And so I'm going to try to perfect it. But anyway, this is your opportunity. Like you had a chance to ask an African something that you wondered about when they came up or when they came to faith or even what it's like over there now. You call us 866-348-7884. And so, Rob, from what I understand, John came over there creating jobs. You even wrote a book on the subject. You still with us, John?
Rob.
Yeah, John, Rob. Get my name straight. Yes. Go ahead, Rob. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I've written several books, but none of them published. It's the way I process my thinking. And so I didn't publish a book on it, but I've written on it a fair amount. Yeah, so I can speak on the topic, but the book is not out there. I just wrote it for myself.
That's cool. That I can understand that. I've written a few of those books myself. That just helped me kind of focus in. But John, the other Rob, yes. So Fidelis, at least I got your first name right. Anyway,
We're getting people's names right here.
Nonetheless, so John, when you went over there, I mean, what were you over there showing people how to raise cattle, or what were you doing?
Yeah, we were, Rob and I and my brother-in-law, Kevin, we were over there with his boat project from Seattle, of all things, which he can tell you more about that part. That part confuses me, building boats. But the thing that we were over there to do was check out the boat, because some of the captains and things like that were really riding. The boat was capable of doing lots of things. And so I know Rob could speak to that a lot more. But we went over there to check it out, and we met with some of the other boat captains, and some of those boats were not good. They were cargo ships. They really didn't create a lot of jobs, and they sank a lot. And so I think Rob Smith can speak a lot to that and where we were, because we were all over the place.
So, wow, there on Lake Victoria, Rob, you were helping people in jobs in boating, both captaining, or, however that worked?
Well, I had we raised kids in Uganda, and one of the partners that we had in Uganda knew that I built boats in Seattle, and so he came and said, we need ferries for Lake Victoria. And it was right at the time that I was realizing that God was calling me to be a businessman in Africa, as well as someone who took care of children. And so we started researching where ferries had existed before the independence of Uganda, and why ferries were not operating where they were needed. And so after identifying a market need, we then set about to build ferries in Seattle that we then dismantled, containerized, and then rebuilt them on the shores of Lake Victoria. And in doing that, we hired local people to put the boat back together, and then the ones that were the most confident, we then taught them how to even go to sea, and got them qualified to be the crew on those boats.
Wow, so that's
one of those boats. John came over with his brother-in-law.
So, is the water rough on Lake Victoria?
It can be a little rough at times, especially when you're floating in a boat for 5 hours trying to get rescued.
Yeah, yeah. We had an issue with that boat that we were trying to solve, and we were told that it was solved. And John and his brother-in-law and myself and our managing director went out really for. I can't remember, John. Did we do a commercial run? I think we just went out just to test it.
Yeah, we went out to test it, and then all of a sudden, these, unfortunately, sadly, these guys ran the boat harder than it probably should have ran. And so we
Yeah.
had to graciously talk to them. Let's put it that way. Graciously.
And so it's fascinating that you guys are on that same tact because, Fidelis, you were saying earlier, you need a boat.
We need a
I
boat.
know a guy. But but anyway, you need a boat, and so I was telling you during the break, you got to tell people if somebody out there is wanting to give you a boat, and then they need to know how to connect with you, right?
Well, yes. To reach me, if you reach out to the Truth Network through the CEO, Stu Epperson, what we need is a boat. Buy the boat. Don't give us money. Buy the boat. You can buy it in South Africa. You can buy it through Rob Smith.
Really?
Yes. Buy it through Rob Smith. That's even the best. Then it can go from South Africa to Nigeria. And let me also say something very, very important about the ministry of Rob Smith. Rob Smith is doing ministry with a knowledge of Africa. Most often, or more often than not, we send missionaries to Africa. Like, for example, doing Bible translation. It is better for us to train the native speakers of the language, to do the translation. If we are sending missionaries, let them go in the capacity of consultants, project managers. I'm a certified project management professional. I'm a PMP. And I have been involved with Bible translation. I took a Wycliffe class in 1981 in Nigeria. And then I had further training in Lausanne, Switzerland, where Billy Graham started the itinerary evangelist program. So there are so many errors you find in Bible translation. I do know that no Bible is perfect. Even the King James, there are errors. Even the Syrian Bible, which is one of the best. So the point I'm trying to underline is that Rob Smith is doing ministry with good knowledge of the environment, of the terrain. And we need to also come to the understanding that it is not only the gospel we have to preach. It's not just going there and tell people to accept Jesus Christ. Rob Smith goes there, he studies the needs of the people, and he finds the felt needs, and one of them is economic. And it's ministering to that need. Because you can't go and tell somebody about Jesus Christ when he's hungry. And that's why we need to support ministries like that of Rob Smith, because he understands what the people need. Take care of their basic needs. They need hospitals. They need schools. Like we are trying to get a campus of Carolina University in Africa, because the former president, Dr. Petit, had a meeting with me a few years ago, and he said, Fidelis, can you recruit students for us in Africa? And I said, yes. I was a journalist for 45 years in various parts of the world, in Copenhagen, in Denmark, in Africa. I was in U.S. News and World Report for years, So I have a clear understanding of what goes on, around the world. So we need to, support ministries, and I repeat it, support ministries like that of Rob Smith, and you will reach out to people and get their ears open to hear the gospel.
So speaking of that, Rob, how would people connect with your ministry?
Well, let me just
We're losing Rob, but we're
More.
going to get him back.
Oh, can you hear me?
We can now.
Okay. Am I coming through clearly?
Somewhat.
Okay, let me try that again. My not-for-profit that was sort of more of a traditional ministry, once we raised our kids, we then shut it down. so we didn't want to be a not-for-profit that was needing a crisis to exist. The crisis is over. Am I coming through it clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, but I have continued in Africa as a minister who is a businessman. And so the way that we reach people for Christ and the way that we influence the culture is by running business here. And so we have the ferry business, and then we also have a new business that we're doing in Mombasa, which is a light train system that we have come up with that's very novel and very inexpensive and is green, which will give them light rail through the city of Mombasa. And we hope if that works, we then come to Lagos and to other major cities in the African continent that really struggle with traffic. And so if someone wants to find out about it, they can just email me. And so I could spell that out. It's Rob at Earthwise Ventures. Just as you hear it, earthwiseventures.com.
Rob at earthwiseventures.com. There you go.
Yeah.
And I'll be able to just tell them what we're up to.
And so when you say a light train, I'm visualizing a lot of things. I'm really curious of what that actually is.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've taken 4 proven ideas and we're combining them. And this may sound crazy, but modern roller coasters are held up by poles that are about 50 to 70 meters apart. It's about 120 to 150 feet apart. And they light. Electric cars, if they're electric because of the track and not the battery, are light. And so we're taking AI, self-driving cars, roller coaster track, and the software that would distribute parcels in a warehouse, to begin in that, where every parcel gets to the right truck, combined with solar power to provide a green light train system for cities like Lagos.
I hate we got to go to a break
lane.
because this sounds like a wild ride.
Yes, it is. It's a wild ride.
So we're buckling up when we come back with your questions. 866-348-7884. We'd love to hear from you. 866-348-7884. The Thunderbolt train coming up.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
Welcome back to Truth Talk Live. Today we are crossing over to Africa with Rob Smith and Fidelis Eabute. How'd I do?
Yeah, you did very well.
Oh.
Very well.
We left our hero Rob.
Yeah.
Well, these roller coaster trains are very inviting. I got to tell you. Now I'm picturing other things, and so you got to get me straight here, because I'm thinking that, man, these are going to be some wild rides. But it seems genius, right? That if you've got the power supply in the tracks, and it's an amazing way to get transportation to people that otherwise wouldn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as Fidelis will know, if you're an employee in Lagos, Nigeria, and you do not live on the island, but you work on the island where all the jobs are, it'll take you 3.5 to 4 hours to get to work.
That's true.
And
Very
true. We've been looking at I've really been studying it from a ferry perspective because there's lots of water in Lagos for many years, thinking how can we put a ferry system in a very shallow bay. And then the idea came to me 2 years ago that we can go down Main Street on reinforced telephone poles. The track is 62 inches wide, and it's rubber wheels, so it's quiet. And then AI and the abundance now of electric vehicles just makes a perfect solution, an affordable solution for an African city. And because it's green, Europe will pay for it. Because Europe has committed itself has committed itself to green projects to sort of purge their conscience of destroying the earth, as they believe they will do. by 2050 if they don't take action. So they are funding green projects all over the world, and we would just love them to fund something as radical as this. And our plan is to go to Europe and do green bonds and then get carbon credits for what we create. And the result will be, being able to get to work in 20 minutes instead of hours, and then while you're in the car, you can hear the gospel. You can hear gospel truth throughout Africa. So that's our goal.
God is so, and from what I saw, from what John was saying, your ferries were electric too, or it says the electric boat company.
Well, it could run on
we
anything.
do make
really.
ferries were diesel, but we do make electric boats for pleasure boats. But the market, despite cities all around the world mandating electric ferries, the market is still figuring out how to do it. And so we're not huge proponents of electric boats, but we certainly are proponents of electric trains, because in the water resists. Water is probably the most difficult thing to power through, because you're pushing. It's like going uphill all the time. And so if you had a Tesla car and you went uphill all the time, your car would last about half an hour. And so that's the problem with boating, is that you're with such resistance, and so you need more power than normal. But on a track, in a car or a train, once you get to the speed that you need to go, it takes very little power to maintain that speed, especially if you're level. And so if you think of the city of Lagos, Fidelis, or the city of Mombasa where we were working, it's a flat city, very few uphills. And so it's ideal to have a very flat roller coaster. So even though it's a roller coaster track, it's not going up and down. It's just going with the street. And so we're very excited about it, and we're doing our prototype train in Mombasa. We're just about to start it. That is awesome. It's
wow.
Really, really cool ideas. And again, putting African people to work. And again, if it's within Christian companies, obviously they're going to be rubbing elbows with people that's going to share a relationship with Jesus, like you were talking about, Fidelis.
Absolutely.
And so how about your own initiatives in Africa, Fidelis? What are you doing these days?
Well, what we've been trying to do, two things. One, we're trying to see how we can get the Bible into every language in Africa. As I said, I had weekly Bible translation training in 1981, and then another one in Switzerland, in Lausanne, Switzerland. In Africa, people, especially in the rural communities, cannot read and write. But if you get them a message in their language, they understand it. If you preach in their language, they understand it. If you have the Bible in video, like the Assemblies of God is trying to do with their videobible.com, what they are trying to do is to put the Bible in the languages of the people, so they can watch it, as a movie. And I still remember, in the 1950s when we were in the elementary school, and up to the 60s, there were no movies in the parts of the country most parts of the country, especially in the rural areas. Also, when the British, and this was the colonial days, when the British Minister of Information would bring what they call cinema to one of the communities, people will paddle their canoes from everywhere to come and watch it. Similarly, if you put the Bible in video, people will come from anywhere to watch it. They are coming to watch cinema. And then in this case, it's going to be in their own language, the Bible in their own language. So those are some of the projects that I have been working on. And God has specially trained me over the years as a journalist, not only in Africa, but also in Washington, D.C. I was in Washington. I worked for the U.S. News and World Report. I also briefly worked for the Washington Post. And I was a fellow of the American Society of Newspaper Editors in Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy in Tufts University in Medford, which is just a stone's throw from Harvard. And so God has, trained me to be able to help with some of these projects. But we don't have the resources, we don't have the finance to do it. Because what needs to be done is to have the people themselves, the custodians of the laws, the customs and traditions of the people, to translate the Bible. And then we can send, missionaries. I see myself as a missionary plenipotentiary because I can do a lot of things. Bible translation, building alphabets in any language, and helping the people to translate the Bible. And then we just go there and look at what they've done. We do the fact-checking, we do all, the project management, evaluate everything and be sure that everything is accurate. These are some of the things we are doing. And then, perhaps more importantly, is the fact that you cannot get your people to listen to the Word of God except they have some education. And so what we are doing is try and bring a university, for example, like Carolina University. I've been in touch with them for years. Let's build a campus, let's establish a campus of Carolina University in Africa to train the young people, get college education, and be able to help with, missionary work as well. Like we were talking about the school boat. If we have such things, they'll be listening to the gospel every day. Like if we have a radio station, like Stu Epperson and I have been talking about having a radio station in a rural community, in one of the mission fields that I go to. We can use the radio to preach the gospel, but we can also use the radio to broadcast, courses in physics, in chemistry, in biology, in mathematics. So that not only do they hear the gospel, but they also are having the education, on radio. And so these are very important projects that I have been working on for years, but I have not had the finance to bring them to the light of day. So again, this is an area in which we need support. Having a campus of Carolina University, and then all these other projects. If anybody wants to reach me, you can also reach me at Fidelis, Fidelis IY at cloud.com. F as in Frank, E as in India, Y as in Yankee. Oh, no, let me take it again. FIDELIS IY at cloud.com. Just remember the Marine Corps motto, Semper Fidelis. My first name comes from there, Fidelis, FIDELIS IY at cloud.com. And so these are very important projects. If we are going to build the gospel, if we are going to fulfill the Great Commission, we need to train young people,
right?
In every area of education. And then the older ones, the Bible, the video Bible project is very important. I happen to be an Assemblies of God person. I was baptized in the Assemblies of God Church in 1973, July 29. I accepted the Lord on March 29, 1973.
We just have a few seconds left, Fidelis. I want to make sure Rob gets a chance to get his email out again. Rob, if you could.
All right.
Yeah, my email is Rob at Earthwise Ventures, EARTHWISE Ventures, VENTURES.com.
Earthwise Rob at earthwiseventures.com. And do yours one more time, Fidelis. No, just say it.
Okay, Fidelis IY at cloud.com.
There you go. Thanks, guys. It was awesome having you on today. Adventures in Africa.
Thank you.